Legends of creatures in Loch Ness in Scotland date back into folklore. Tales of water beasts, kelpies and water horses were likely created to frighten children and keep them away from the lake. The earliest sighting of a monster in the vicinity of the loch was reported by the Irish monk St. Columba in the 7th century AD. He encountered local residents burying a man by the River Ness. They said that the man had been swimming and was mauled by a water beast which had dragged him underwater despite their attempts to rescue him. Columba instructed one of his followers to swim across the river, causing the beast to reappear. The beast approached him, but Columba made the sign of the cross and said, "Go no further. Do not touch the man. Go back at once." The creature stopped as if it had been pulled back with ropes and fled. On the 15th of April 1933, Aldi McKay and her husband John were driving near the loch when they sighted an enormous creature with the body of a whale rolling in the water in the loch.
The creature disported itself, rolling and plunging for fully a minute, its body resembling that of a whale, and the water cascading and churning like a simmering cauldron. Soon, however, it disappeared in a boiling mass of foam. There was something uncanny about the whole thing, for we realised that here was no ordinary denizen of the depths, because apart from its enormous size, the beast, in taking the final plunge, sent out waves that were big enough to have been caused by a passing steamer.
On the 22nd of July 1933, George Spicer and his wife were driving near Loch Ness when they saw the monster cross the road in front of their car.
It was the most extraordinary form of animal. The creature had a large body, about 4 feet high and 25 feet long, and a long, wavy, narrow neck, slightly thicker than an elephant's trunk, and as long as the 10 to 12 foot width of the road. We saw no limbs, and it lurched across the road towards the loch 20 yards away, leaving a trail of broken undergrowth in its wake. It was the nearest approach to a dragon or prehistoric animal that I have ever seen in my life. Its long neck moved up and down in the manner of a scenic railway. It had an animal in its mouth, and had a body that was fairly big with a high back, but if there were any feet, they must have been of the web kind. And as for a tail, I cannot say, as it moved so rapidly, and when we got to the spot, it had probably disappeared into the loch.
This was the first account to describe the plesiosaur form we usually imagine today. Skeptics at the time say the couple may have been influenced by a recent film of King Kong, which featured a plesiosaur-type dinosaur rising from a lake. But what possible motive could they have for inventing such a story? On the 5th of January 1934, a motorcyclist, Arthur Grant, claimed to have nearly hit the creature near the north end of the loch at about 1 a.m. on a moonlit night.
It had a small head attached to a long neck. The creature saw me and crossed the road back to the loch. It was a cross between a seal and a plesiosaur. I dismounted and followed it to the loch, but saw only ripples.
Possible explanations for the monster are large eels or the Greenland shark. In 2018, scientists analyzed DNA samples from the waters of the loch and concluded that eels were present, but sharks and plesiosaurs were not. The Greenland shark can reach up to 20 feet in length and is commonly found in the North Atlantic Ocean around Canada, Greenland, Iceland and Norway. It could survive in the waters of Loch Ness, although it bears none of the characteristics of a typical sighting of the monster. Creatures such as otters and deer do swim in the waters, and it is possible that their wakes create ripples, which may be interpreted as humps from a distance. Birds also may be mistaken for head and neck sightings if the viewer's sense of scale and distance is distorted. Atmospheric refraction could distort the shape and size of objects and animals. Loch Ness is along the Great Glen Fault, and large disturbances on the surface of the water could be a release of gas through the fault, which could easily be mistaken for something swimming below the surface. Columba's sighting described a roaring noise which fits this hypothesis. Certainly for a plesiosaur to survive for millions of years, there would need to be a family of between 50 and 500 individuals to maintain genetic diversity and avoid inbreeding. Loch Ness is 240 meters deep and 23 miles long, but it is still unlikely that such a population could exist without more evidence. Loch Ness is not directly connected to the sea, but is connected via waterways and lochs, so there is a possibility the creatures could reside in the sea and venture inland to hunt. The majority of photographic evidence that has surfaced over the years have mostly been exposed as hoaxes. Certainly in today's world, where most people have instant access to high-quality video on their mobile phones, it would be reasonable to expect to see clear and unambiguous evidence by now. Following 3 sightings in 2023, the largest hunt for Nessie took place in August, with hundreds of hopeful volunteers taking part. Thermal drones and state-of-the-art surveying equipment that had not been previously used were employed. One of these was a hydrophone, which detects audio waves under the water. Search leader Alan McKenna excitedly reported,
"We did hear something. We heard 4 distinctive gloops. We all got a bit excited. We ran to go make sure the recorder was on, and it wasn't plugged in."
If you have had a true supernatural experience, please send it to us at IntriguingRealms@gmail.com, and we may feature it on the channel.